Hello, everyone.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning, afternoon,
Hello.
evening, depending on where you are.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Just making sure I'm adding everyone. Yes.
This is awesome. How exciting.
This is really cool.
All these happy faces. Yay.
All right. Sharon, do you want to kick it off or do you want me to?
I just wanted to pop in and say hi and thank you guys so much for being here. This community means so much to all of us, and I'm just honored to have Karuana and Sue here to speak to us today. And Rachel's been doing a phenomenal job of coordinating, organizing, and helping us pull all this together. So I just wanted to say hi and thank you guys for being here. And then I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to let Rachel run the show. But thank you guys so much.
All right. So I just wanted to welcome everyone to the Women in M365 meeting. We have two amazing speakers. Sue's got some stuff going on, so she might have to jump, but we can always chat if there's extra time. So I'm gonna start off with Karuana has her amazing presentation she's going to share with us about building your career with Microsoft. So I'm going to just pass it right over to you.
Well, okay, that's wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to get my screen sharing here. I am Karuana Gatimu. Let me hop in here and get the right thing sharing, which would be lovely. Oh, it wants more permissions. Just a moment. New computer. Here we go. Turn that on. There we go. Allow. Okay. Let's get this in presentation mode.
And while Carolyn was setting that up, just a reminder, feel free if you want to post your LinkedIn connection or a blog or anything, please make sure you're sharing your information with each other as we're getting all this set up.
Yes, absolutely. Just having a little difficulty here. Hang on one second. Can you ladies talk about the women of M365 a little bit? Well, I might have to drop and rejoin from my browser settings to do the right thing.
Sure.
Do you want me to go first? Caruana, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you do that? That would be great. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Goodness.
So
Thank you, Sue.
hey, no problem. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so I have moved. I was sitting in a waiting room. Somebody kicked me out because they thought that my background might reveal patients. So now I'm in an alcove in the University of Massachusetts Memorial Hospital lobby, I guess. So hopefully you won't hear anything, but if you do, I am trying to multitask today. Let's see if I can share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
We can.
Yay. Okay. Well, thank you. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today because this is not a topic that I typically get to talk about. But it's a fun one for me because when I started my business 20 years ago, I did a ton of research and got advice from so many people. And the best thing about it was that I felt as I was learning from them that it was my job to pass it on. And so I've been doing that informally, but never sort of packaged everything up. So thank you, Rachel, for giving me the opportunity to package up the lessons that I've learned so I can share with you today. Now, I can't see the screen if you're asking questions. So, Rachel, will you kind of monitor and interrupt me if people have questions?
You got it.
Thank you. All right. So, hoping that I can now move my slides. All right. So this is what I'm going to talk about. I'll try to talk about it relatively informally, but I did make some slides so I would remember what to talk about. So just a little bit about me. So I spent 18 years at a consulting firm called American Management Systems. And in the year 2000, everybody at that point was leaping to go to a .com firm. And I was like, well, why am I not doing that? And I ended up through a networking connection joining another small consulting firm. And within 2 years of joining that firm, we were acquired by a rather large company that you may have heard of called Dell. And Dell doesn't, consulting isn't what Dell does. Probably know that they sell hardware. And I was not having a great time being a wart on the pimple of the nose of Dell. And so I had been doing my homework about, am I ready to go out on my own? Could I build a business in 2000? But by 2005, I knew I just needed that being in a 30, I went from a 400 person firm to a 30,000 person firm overnight and realized after 3 years that it really wasn't for me. Did more research and made the decision that I was ready to take the leap. And I think that's the first thing you really want to think about is, am I ready? Can I talk about effectively what is my specialty and what I can do? Have I done this before so that I have a portfolio that I can share with potential clients? Now, I had already been a consultant for many, many years when I decided to take the leap. And I left Dell at the beginning of March, and then we went on a ski trip. And I sent out 200 emails at the beginning of that ski trip. Didn't worry about it while I was skiing. And when I came back, I was booked for the rest of the year. So the nice thing was I sent emails to all of my former bosses who had moved to Denny's and many of my clients because I'd done one really, really smart thing when I joined the little company from the big company. And that was that I was able to write in a clause to my employment agreement that said any client I brought in, I got to take out if I wanted to, so that the relationship that I was building inside the little company those were my relationships. And so Dell was honored that relationship. So I was basically able to leave. I decided not to try and take any clients, but several of them said, if you want the work, then I want her. So Dell became a client as well. So being ready professionally and having a network was really important. I have a piece of advice from an independent consultant about, the financial issues. I was a teeny bit concerned about that because I was the health insurance provider in my family. My husband has a dental practice and he had insurance for his employees, but I was the one who carried the insurance for the family. And I said, hey, first 25 years of our marriage, it was on me. Now you take the next 25. So the good news is he was able to add our family to his plan. But I will tell you that from when I talk to people about who want to do this, the biggest issue in the United States is, where am I going to get my health insurance? And do I have a partner from whom I can get health insurance? Can I join an association to get health insurance? I think that fundamentally blocks a lot of people. And it was definitely a consideration for me. And I think that's something you want to think about. The next thing, from a financial perspective is, am I going to earn money? And the best piece of advice I got was from my friend Lisa Kimball, who said, look, how much would you be willing to invest in learning something new if you were going to change your career? Like, Could you not work for 6 months because you were learning how to do something? Would you be willing to do that? And I thought long and hard about that and said, yeah, I think I can give myself a 6 to 12 month runway in order to do that. And that mentally made me feel a little better about the risk of having a steady income to, oh my God, I'm not going to get paid if I don't work. I'm sorry about that. I did learn one important thing about pricing your services, and I share this with everybody. I have one rate. That is it. I do not negotiate my rate. I will negotiate what I do. I will not negotiate my rate. I made the mistake one time of I was doing work for a friend, and she was at a nonprofit, and she said, she tried to guilt me into reducing my rate, and I did. And they tortured me, just like every other client tortures you to get things done in a meeting after meeting. And I'm like, why am I torturing myself for $75 less an hour? It makes me not want to do the work for them. And when it was time to renew, the project was over and they wanted me to do something else. I said, well, you have to pay my full rate. She goes, okay, no problem. I'm like, really? Why did you negotiate with me so hard? She goes, I'm required to do that. You could have just said no. So lesson learned. I will never do that again. And I haven't. And when someone objects to my rate, what I say is, this is how I price my services. Kind of, I may not be the right person for you, but I will negotiate what I do. But how I build my services is not negotiable. So that's really helped me a lot. And I will tell you, never been asked. I get asked a lot. Not a lot, actually. I get asked occasionally if I can offer a reduction, and I always say no. And everybody says, okay, that's fine, because I think they are required to ask. The other thing to think about is, what kind of a business do you want to start? I'm an LLC, which means a sole proprietor LLC, which means I pay my business taxes on my personal tax returns. And I'll talk more about that later, but I could have been, when I started, that was the right way to go. I could have been an S Corp, which my accountant advised me to do a couple years ago. And then she said it's not worth it because of how old I am, and I'll probably retire before I will have made the benefit from that. But you need to think about all of these things are really important. And then the other thing is, am I okay with not always having work? Can I deal with uncertainty? Being a consultant for my entire career made it a little bit easier for me. Selling yourself confidently means, have I found a niche in which I know I can do this really, really well? I believe that if you believe in yourself, people will believe in you. And so selling myself has not really been a big deal because I'm confident that I don't know everything, but I have picked a lane in which I can say, this is what I do, and I'll find friends and family if I can't do what I'm doing. So tools and systems and all that kind of stuff are important. I have a lot of friends who have gone out and immediately got QuickBooks and all this kind of stuff. When I started my practice, I worked for a Microsoft consulting firm, and I worked with, I'll just call him Mr. Excel. And my friend Paul created an Excel spreadsheet for me with pivot tables. And 20 years later, I am still using Paul's Excel spreadsheet to track my hours. And because I had already been in the consulting mindset, it's just sort of track your hours by day, track everything you do, track it by day. At the end of the month, tally it all up, stick it in an invoice, and good to go. So I have, even though I probably should, nothing is automated for me. I'm still using Excel. I know I should have a 1, 3, 5-year plan, but I'm terrible at this. I will just say to you, I think you should think about it, but don't look at me because I'm not I have never had a plan. And it's kind of embarrassing because I know other people like me who have really great plans. That's not been me. Okay, so I think just to sort of like deep dive on just a few things, I actually think that the secret to being an independent consultant, the first thing you really are deciding is, am I growing a business or am I being a just me? I learned that from my lawyer and my financial planner, because what your goals are, what you want to do and what you feel comfortable with will determine kind of the end game for your business. If you're growing a business, the goal usually is to sell. If you're just going to be independent, what you're looking at is, do I want to maximize current income, or am I going to potentially get the big upside at the end? I had think, 2 kids in college when I decided to do this. And so for me, I couldn't go for the upside. I was going for maximizing current income. And I'd already spent 20 years managing people, and I sort of thought I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try this first and see what happened. If you're going to be independent, and even if you're not, even if you're going to build a business, you got to figure out what is going to set my practice, my business apart. It should be something that you really love, because then it doesn't feel like work. It should be something in which you're interested. Ideally, you've got some experience, because that's how you sell yourself. And I waited a really long time before I did this, because I wasn't totally confident in my ability to do this. But I really started evolving to the things that I knew I really loved. And so once I knew what I wanted to do, I could really start saying, okay, like, how can I position myself in the market? Like, what is the thing that I do? And I will say in 2009, there was this giant downturn in the economy, and many, many people were struggling for work. I was not a generalist, I was a specialist. So if someone needed information architecture and intranet design, that was what I did. And that was something I could hang my hat on. And so I had some of my best income years when other people were struggling, because I was not trying to be everything. I was really just trying to be me. And so over the years, I've invested in learning and training for myself. I speak at a lot of conferences, which I love to do, because I do love sharing what I do, and I don't think I'll ever retire from doing that. But I also love going to the sessions that other people teach, because I learn a lot. I like to hear things and touch things. I'm very kinesthetic as a learner. So I love the in-person training sessions. I hated sort of having to watch everything online during the early part of the pandemic, but where it's important, I'll do that too. So making sure that you stay on top of your skills, I think, is really important. If you want to be a business in the United States, you got to set up a company. And that means you need to decide, and as I said, what's your exit strategy? What kind of company do you want to be? I think I'm not going to give you any advice on this. Talk to your accountant. There are tax implications of both. I found it easier to do it the way I'm doing it, but other people don't. First thing I did, though, was I realized that some things are free. So I registered with the Small Business Administration and got a DUNS number. The reason you want to get that is because a lot of companies ask for it, because it makes you seem real. I also established my LLC in the state of Maryland, and I have been asked multiple times for my articles of incorporation or my registration papers, and it's scan it, send it off to the company. So I am a legal business entity in the state of Maryland. It does mean that I have to pay $300 a year to keep that license in Maryland. And occasionally I've had to do it in other states if I've done state and local government work. If anyone is ever going to, if you want to be independent and you're going to do work in the state of Oregon, you should talk to me first, because they have a pay to get in and this crazy pay to get out. And if I had known that, I would have charged the client more, so that I didn't get hit with if you no longer want to maintain paying us each year, you got to pay us $300 or $600 to get out of the deal. If you want to do work with the federal government, believe it or not, as a small business, you can, without going like under a big partner. But you do have to register with the System for Award Management, SAM. Doesn't cost a thing. And I actually had to update my registration last night. You will need to get your DUNS number and then determine what your business code is. All of it is actually relatively easy. And if anyone wants help, I'm happy to do it. So I made this little table of what's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp. I'll share my slides if I'll figure out how you want me to do that, but you guys can take a look at this. But in any event, it really just depends. You might want to start out as an LLC just because it's easy, and then maybe transition to an S Corp because it's possible as well. One of the things that actually shocked me is this, oh my God, you have to have business insurance. And of course, yes, you do, because that's what makes you legit. Here's my best advice to you, techinsurance.com. One of my I call them my kitchen cabinet, is a former Microsoft employee who had a little side hustle. And he was my insurance guru. And all of my insurance for work comes through Tech Insurance. I refer everybody to them. You can do the whole thing online. You get an insurance agent. They help you find the best prices. They work with a bunch of different companies. And when something goes up, they help me see, can I get a better rate? And it's been great. And when you need an insurance certificate, you just type in a bunch of stuff, and a lot of clients will ask for that. One thing I'll tell you is that get the amount that your agent recommends. And if your client says you need 5 times as much, which occasionally they do, just give them your certificate, say, this is what I have. And I have never been asked to change that. Anytime the client says you need to have X, Y, and Z, if I tell them what I have, they always adjust the MSA or whatever to whatever I have. And so honestly, because I typically am not writing code, I am delivering PowerPoint, they usually are willing to go for it. It, again, depends on what you're doing for the client. But I have learned not to be scared of giant corporations and their legal teams because, again, I know what I have is reasonable in terms of coverage. If it doesn't work for them, it doesn't work for them. I think for most people who decide to go independent, this is the hardest thing, is how am I going to deal with fluctuations in income? That's about discipline. It's about you thinking that through. I can't tell you how to do it, what works for you. But for me, I'm a budgeter from way back. So this was not really that big of a deal for me. I knew exactly what we needed to kind of run the family part of our business. And I have been amazingly lucky that every time, as I said, I'm not really good at planning, but every time I wondered, I don't really know when this project ends, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing next. I feel like I put something out in the universe, even just thinking, and then phone calls happen and I'm booked. So that's why I'm saying I'm a terrible planner. You cannot do what I do because I don't know that everybody can work that way. I do think that one thing I do, and I'm absolutely disciplined about timekeeping, which I think is important, and I'm really disciplined about tracking when I get paid, when I'm not paid on time, and I will hunt people down. Oddly enough, the only time I ever have to chase people down, this is it. Most of the time, it's only law firms, and I don't really understand that. I have a great accountant, I have a financial planner, and I had a lawyer help me set up my articles of incorporation, but I think honestly online, you can do that online right now. And then when I started out in the business, one of the things I was most concerned about was intellectual property, because almost every time you write a contract with someone, you're doing work for hire and they own everything. But I typically come into the table with a lot of IP. And so I got the lawyer from the former consulting firm I work with to write an IP protection clause that I add to every MSA, and absolutely nobody has been disagreed with me. So it's been great. These are the kind of things I'm sure you know. You want to build a website, you need to be legit. You should engage on social media. I realized that when I started my business, it wasn't as important as it is now. And I think this is really important. Harry Russo, I think, might be on the call, recommended a book for me, which is great, called Let Them by Mel Robbins. And she talks about how she started her business and engaging on social media. She talks about how she didn't do it as much as she should and how doing it transformed her business. So I think that's critically, critically important. And then you probably know people. And if you don't know people, you can get to know people. And I think attending industry events, joining relevant groups, reaching out to all the people you have ever worked with. That is honestly what got my foot off the ground. It was amazing. I didn't reach out to the bosses I didn't like, but for the most part, I had really wonderful bosses, and every single one had work for me to do. And that was great because I didn't have to sell myself. They knew what I could do. And one of them in particular allowed me to do things I had no clue if I was going to be able to do, but because he trusted me, he was, well, I really need this done. I don't have anyone on my current team who can do it. And I would say to him, well, I'm not quite sure that's in my wheelhouse, but I'll try. And it was all of those things are like terrific opportunities. this goes without saying, I suck at this. I am not really good at prioritization, task management. Don't think, this is my vision. My vision when I started this was I'm going to be able to leave work. I can do anything I want during the day. It's my time. I get the employee of the month parking space every month. I just have to make the coffee, blah, blah, blah. And have all kinds of free time. Ha! I played more tennis when I was employed than I did after I started my company. I find I work many more hours, but the hours don't feel the same because they're mine. I choose when I'm going to take vacation, but I don't really choose because my clients are kind of dictating when I take vacation. Um, so it all sounds a little better than it is, but I love the flexibility of I'm managing my time and it's just me and the relationships I have with my clients that I do have to deal with. So I will say taking breaks is really important. Getting support from colleagues, from friends, from whomever um, is also really grounds me and makes it possible for me to do all the wonderful things that I have really enjoyed doing. So, you know, this is the thing for me being in the Microsoft space, staying on top of the things that change all the time is exhausting. So I have an RSS feed to the roadmap. I have a tenant account, and so I get the message center posts every Monday. I read all the blogs, I follow along, and as soon as I learn something new, I am writing it down, updating presentations, and informing the clients that care about it of what's changing and what's happening. But this is an enormously time-consuming task. And so think about what that means. I mean, in our space, you kind of have to do it anyways, but this is what I think probably cuts into my free time more than anything else. I am a Microsoft MVP. That was really important to me because prior to starting my own business, I represented Dell on the Microsoft Partner Advisory Council. So I had an enormous seat at the table. And so for the few years between leaving Dell and getting the MVP, that felt like I didn't know as much as I used to know. And so that has been important for me. But I will tell you that the number one calling card that drove my practice was actually writing books. I don't know if I would write a book today because things change so quickly. I think now you could do it with blogs and social media presence, but it's a very expensive calling card because writing a book is an enormous sink of your time. But it does give you a credential that I think is ultimately critical. So that's basically my story. I think planning, developing, and managing your time are probably the key to all of this. And here's all the different ways you can reach me. And I am happy to turn things over to Karuana and answer any questions if someone has them.
I think the thing you missed was us all fangirling in the chat, Sue.
Yes, that's basically.
We're just all, you're a legend and such a fantastic mentor. And you've been so very good to me and so helpful to so many people. So we all adore you. We think you're awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Did you share the story of how when we first met, I basically was planning your career for you?
Yeah, yes, she was. She was. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what Sue thinks. Every time something would happen to me, I was like, I have to tell Sue what happened. I know she'll have good insight.
First time I met Caroline, I'm like, you should be a consultant, and this is what I think you should do. And anyways.
It was awesome. It was awesome. She had the confidence in me that I was able to soak up. This is why like these groups are so important because there are days when I don't have very much confidence in myself, but I can remember what Sue has said, or Marit or Rachel or somebody else. And a lot of what I do so that I can live up to their vision of who I am when I am hiding under my bed or feel terrible.
Believe me, that is my story. I think almost every single day. I often like wake up going like, am I going to be able to answer that question? And how do I answer it in a way that look, this is the best part. I mean, I am not afraid to say I don't know that. And I think that I think is really important for everybody. If you don't know, don't fake it. Just say I don't know the answer. I'll find out. And I think you don't have to know everything, but choosing what you are going to know makes it easier to say, That's not in my wheelhouse. I will tell you, my clients will probably tell you I've said that way too much. I don't know that. I don't do that. That's not me.
Exactly. Okay, let's get in reading mode here and let's share this screen like I should and get going. Here we go. I'm sharing the whole thing, and while I do this, you will not see will
Hide what
not
you
see
need
the
to.
meeting. Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So hello everyone. This is such a fun group. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Karuana Gatimu, and I do work at Microsoft. I'm in my 14th year now, working in Microsoft, but I've been in the ecosystem for almost 30 at this point. Oh my goodness, it's such a long time. Um, you can see my connect information there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm really happy, actually. I get to go after Sue. She gave a fantastic overview of how to think about building your business and what that means on a personal level. And I'm going to step a little bit more into the things that make you successful at Microsoft, but also is very applicable to your own consulting space if you choose to do it. I really believe very strongly in owning your own story. You're in charge of your narrative. You are the main character of the movie that you're watching, which is your life. And I think it's really important, especially for women in business, to really take that sense of strength and ownership, which I heard from Sue as well, right? And that doesn't mean there isn't risk. That doesn't mean that there isn't, some rough times or rough waters occasionally or uncertainty. But I do feel like even working at Microsoft, and maybe especially there, that the direction that I have had and the vision that I've had, supported by other people, has really helped me to be successful. The thing about working at Microsoft is you can do anything. And that can be very overwhelming. And the first job you have at Microsoft will probably not be your last. And because we're such a huge and sprawling organization, you can work in public sector, you can work in nonprofit, you can work in the commercial field with enterprise customers or small to medium business customers, or like me, you can work in product. Even though I work in product engineering, I've crafted the type of job that speaks to the things I want to do. And the job I have today as Director of Customer Advocacy for AI and Collaboration did not exist 5, 6, 7 years ago. I basically made this job up and convinced people that it was necessary based on business results. And I did that because I really wanted to prioritize being my authentic self. Right? I am not very good at being what other people want me to be or fitting into a little box. And I tried to do that for the longest time. I had lots of other jobs in corporate America. Before I came to Microsoft, I was a director of global e-commerce for Skechers. I ran my own company. I worked in a partner ecosystem in the Microsoft space and did lots of other things. And so I've always struggled a little bit with trying to be what other people are in their jobs, and it just isn't me. It isn't me. I'm a unique combination of elements and talent and background. And when I really leaned in and started to appreciate that is when even more doors opened for me. I encourage folks to definitely understand what makes yourself tick. And then use the new tools. Sue talked a little bit about social media. I've written parts of books, but I really, when got noticed in the Microsoft ecosystem, I was speaking at community events and I was writing a blog. And it was a technical blog about SharePoint troubleshooting and landing business value with SharePoint solutions. Not that many people at the time were really talking about the business value aspect, which has always been my sweet spot and the thing that I love the best. I love to build things with the tech, but what I really love to do is make sure that people are getting value out of what they've invested in, right? There's been too many technology project horror stories, and I like to make sure that people are getting the most out of what they have done with Microsoft or anything else for that matter. And now it's different. Now, where I used to sit down and take time to write my plan for that year, or just even envision it in my mind, because I don't always write it down. Now I can use AI and say, "Hey, write me a social media plan on business value for Microsoft 365 Copilot, and include these social media handles," and poof, it spits it out. So the tools of AI, Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever it is that you use, can really help you with this planning and branding and writing and being able to get content out in the world that you can own and have your name on and be identified by. And then Sue talked about this a little bit, but I cannot tell you how important relationships are inside Microsoft and also in the community. Two pieces about that. A lot of people who are outside in the community have come in and worked inside at Microsoft. So the relationships I've had in the community, through Women at Microsoft, Women of SharePoint, all of the SharePoint Saturdays I spoke at, all of the other events that I do, have also benefited me inside Microsoft. But managing your brand and career inside Microsoft is its own element. We were just talking about this. I'm here this week at a leadership offsite, and we were talking in my team meeting this week about understanding who your stakeholders are and really investing in those relationships. And I feel like that is such an important thing to do, and we'll talk a little bit about how. It's important, Sue mentioned it as well, but I will reinforce this. Inside Microsoft, you are managing what people know you for. I think this is true in any organization, and I think it's true in our industry as a whole. But as I think about Microsoft, I have been very clear with people about what I'm good at. And I'm always making sure that they understand that I am not just an on-air talent, that people do know that I speak a lot. I teach storytelling and narrative construction for product adoption and that sort of thing. They know me for adoption. But I always want to make sure that they never forget about my technical acumen, right? Across Microsoft 365, my team runs very large platforms for adoption.microsoft.com and the Microsoft tech community. It has 125 million users on it every month. And so this was intentional on my part. I never wanted to be perceived as just the person who did the presentation or the conversation or the marketing or adoption of that feature. I wanted people to understand that I'm also a technical force to be reckoned with, right? That I understand the technology actually in ways that some people in product engineering don't. Because most people in product engineering at Microsoft go very deep in the one thing that they do. If you're in SharePoint, that's what you focus on, OneDrive, Copilot, whatever. I have always been across them and been able to identify the broken pieces across the different scenarios in ways that other people couldn't. And I've developed that brand and developed that knowledge inside Microsoft so that people can give that weight to my feedback when I give it to them. And this model here is like, what does the ecosystem at large know you for? And if you're starting out in this journey, maybe the answer is nothing, right? That's okay. That's awesome, actually, because you can pick. What do you want people to know you for? And maybe that's the thing you start speaking on or writing on, right? Sometimes when I teach this, I teach, professional branding for introverts. Not everybody wants to be on stage. Sue and I happen to really enjoy it. I'm theater trained. That was my family's business. And so I like performing. Before tech was my day job. I was a dancer, right? And so I don't have a degree in computer science, by the way. Just want to call that out. So don't think that that's a blocker, because it's not. But I wanted to make sure that I was mindful about what I was teaching people I was about. So there's what the ecosystem knows you for broadly across the industry, maybe from blogs or videos, your social media presence, your presentations at conferences, wherever you're comfortable. And then there's what your circle knows you for. At Microsoft, my circle is not only my immediate manager and my skip level manager, who happens to be Jeff Teeper, who's president of collaborative apps and platforms, but it's also their a certain level at Microsoft at which if you wish to be promoted, you have to get recommendations from people outside your management chain. And when I was up for that promotion to director, I was very thrilled that all the investment I had done in the security group, in the Azure group, in the marketing group, and all these different groups that weren't in my chain, I had people in each of those groups who would write me a recommendation and say, yes, we believe Caruana should be promoted to this level. There are certain levels inside Microsoft, entry level positions, they do them by number, 59 to 63 is kind of like a senior as a product management job. And then you start to get into the principal bands, and that's really frankly the hardest job you can have at Microsoft because you have accountability for strategic direction, but you still have to do a bunch of work, like hands-on actual work. When you get to my level, it is more about the plan, making sure you're driving impact, making sure you're driving revenue and what have you, but all of those things require that people believe that you can do that. Right. And so that circle, being strategic and mapping out who those people are, the relationships you're going to invest in is so important. And I want to tell one story because it was so important in my career. So I used to sit in Microsoft Teams engineering. My first job at Microsoft was in IT. I came in to help run SharePoint for Microsoft from in IT, and we moved it to the cloud and did all this stuff. And then I moved on to Skype for Business and then Teams in IT. And when they invited me in to work in Microsoft Teams product engineering, of course, that was like one of the best days of my life because I was determined that I wasn't going to ask for a job. They needed to ask me. And I wanted them to ask me to join their product group. It was a little bit of a test. Do you see my value? Do you see who I am? Do you see what I can bring to the table? Because if you see it and you want it, great. But if you don't see me, then I'm not gonna work super hard to try to be in your group. And so when Teams invited me to come be an engineering manager there, at one point I had my skip meeting with a gentleman named Graham Sheldon. He was the head of product at that time. I'd been in there a few years. And I went to that meeting and I said, you know, tell me in my role, what can I do to make your life easier? And I didn't say anything else. And he was frankly dumbfounded because everybody goes into those meetings asking for something, right? Or trying to hype themselves or making sure their skip knows what they do and, all of that. And instead, I approached it from a service perspective, right? I wanted him to remember me, of course, but I wanted him to remember me as an asset that he could deploy to make his life easier. And so that's what I wanted him to know me for. And I was very intentional about that. And what he said to me was, my God, Caruana, no one's ever asked me that. And then he thought about all the things that were keeping him up at night. And then he gave me this special project that had a lot to do with the promotion that I got in that group. Right. And so, for me, there has to be a connection between my professional brand and what my group and the industry knows me for and what motivates me as an individual. And that's what these other two circles are about. I'm a survivor. I come from not a lot of money. There's been a lot of challenges in my personal life that I've had to overcome. And I'm a creative person, right? I do a lot of video production and what have you. Now that's my actual training is in production. And, at the end of the day, the work that I'm doing needs to help other people. I am driven by being of service. That is why I get up in the morning, is helping others. Like it's not that complicated, but I've tried to make a connection between what I've done publicly and professionally and having meaning for myself, which means I show up to work really happy. I'm very happy in my job. And that is something also that has been important at Microsoft is that when I show up in these project meetings or I'm working with other people, people enjoy working with me and my team. And that is a differentiator inside Microsoft sometimes because there's a lot of stress and pressure and maybe not everybody is quite as happy as I am. And so I've consciously made sure to share that positive energy with other people because when people like to work with you and they find value in it and, you deliver on time for them, they will come back again. There's something I wanted to go over here really quickly because it goes directly to what I do inside and outside of Microsoft, and that is own my work. I don't have the same intellectual property that Sue does when she goes to a customer, but I do have material that I generate and create, and I find sometimes that people don't want to put their names on things. I think if you're going to pursue a career at Microsoft or in this business, that's something that you kind of need to get over. I have no problem sharing credit, right? But when I write something like the first Microsoft 365 implementation framework, my name was on it, and I'm still the lead of that governing body today, and I have grown it into a governing committee. But I feel like whenever you show up someplace, this is an example of a slide I use in a public presentation, and I would take, the logo off, for instance, for the show if I was presenting inside Microsoft. But even inside Microsoft, I highlight things like the topic that I'm talking about, right? I put my name and my title on pretty much everything, right? I have a recent headshot so people can identify me in a crowd. That is important. I know that seems silly because there's not that many blonde African American women in this community, but still, right? It's important to be recognizable if you're comfortable with that and you're pursuing a public persona. I was recently awarded one of the top 100 customer advocates in the planet, and so I put that on my slide as well. Those kinds of things are important external to Microsoft. You get a blip, you get a moment of recognition inside. The slides that I have about how many users I drive and product conversion and that sort of stuff is more important inside Microsoft. But there's a joke among softies. Sometimes you're better known outside than you are inside, and in terms of your accomplishments, and that can be sometimes true. But I still want people to know that I did receive that award, and how they can connect with me and make sure that they have clarity about my online profile. LinkedIn is my profile of choice. I have done many things. I've had my own blog. I used to be on Twitter a lot more and other things, but for now, LinkedIn is my primary profile, where if you want to follow what me or my team or I are doing, then that's where you find that information. Now I run some other larger things like the community page and stuff like that. But for me as an individual, as a professional, inside and outside of Microsoft, it is that LinkedIn profile. And I encourage you to do this as you go along this journey and you're thinking about your career, and maybe you're going to take Sue's advice and start your own company. Periodically run a web search on yourself. I do it in Bing and I do it in Google because they come back with different results. And then I've done it in Copilot, right? Tell me about Karuana Gatimu. And in Copilot for the web, the consumer version, so it's getting all those web results, and it's very informative what comes back, right? Both sides of my life, the work I do as a spiritual practitioner and the work I do at Microsoft, both showed up from those Copilot results. And so I do that at least once a year to make sure that there's accurate information out there. And it's what they call reputation management. High-ranking executives use that to manage their online reputation. I do it myself with the tools that exist. It doesn't mean I can get rid of anything if it's wrong, but if I had to, get a firm to help me because somebody hacked an account or something, I could. But I will tell you that people inside Microsoft will do the same thing, right? The very first thing that any hiring manager does at Microsoft before interviewing someone is look at your LinkedIn profile. Number one thing that we all do. And so managing that and using the articles, publishing posts, things of that nature is absolutely essential if you're looking to get in the door at Microsoft in whatever role. And the second most important thing is your network, knowing people, knowing the hiring managers, knowing people inside Microsoft from the field. And remember, your first job at Microsoft won't be your last. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is get in the door if that is what you want to do. Developing self-awareness, I think, is essential to managing a great career. And in Microsoft, this is important as well, making sure that you have the self-awareness to know when to speak and when not to speak. I will tell you that most people, they see me in Microsoft, they see me at an event and I'm talking, I'm presenting, or I'm at a community booth and helping people. But when I'm in Microsoft, I don't talk nearly as much. I had a great mentor who was vice president in IT for a while. And, I watched her in meetings and she hardly talked. And then she'd ask a very pointed question. And I have adopted that. And if you look at a lot of executives at Microsoft, you can tell the executive in the room because often they're the person who isn't talking very much until they are asking a probing question. And so knowing who you are in any given room is important, and that helps you develop confidence and be authentic. You're learning from your advisors, but nothing will replace your desire to live your mission and the determination and the community that will make it happen. Right? I could spend, an hour on each one of these elements, but just having them all work together enables you to differentiate yourself from the other 200,000 people that work in Microsoft and that work in general, right? In this industry. I think if you take account all the Microsoft partners and things of that nature, there's millions of people in this space. And so you definitely want to be known as being thoughtful and being kind. Microsoft's culture has changed a lot over time. And so the idea of what they call leaving dead bodies behind, even though you got something done, is not acceptable behavior anymore inside Microsoft. Partnership and building on the work of others and having people build on your work is the name of the game. And so my natural collaborative spirit now has, even more place to shine in the aspired to culture of the company, that I love. And it was not always like that. It is an exciting future, but you do have to really take ownership of what is going to happen to you next. It is not by chance that I have the career that I have at Microsoft. I have been intentional, I have been strategic, and I have been thoughtful about who I wanted to spend my time with. And it extends to the fact that, there are groups in Microsoft that are maybe not as rewarding to work with. I go where people really appreciate the talent of me and my team, and I go where I'm wanted. And I think that's a privilege that I've earned over time. That doesn't mean I, don't do something. If Jeff tells me to do it, I certainly do. But most of the time, I get to work with people I really enjoy. And for me, that's a criteria at this part in my life. I don't think that work should be excruciating. And I think that it is a privilege to work at Microsoft in such a big organization, especially now. And I want it to be enjoyable. I want to live my values of being of service, personal meaning, and financial security for my family, and in that order. And I feel like, to some extent, I'm being rewarded for the hard work that I have put in on those things. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that you can do is make sure that you are really enjoying your life, right? Enjoying the work that Microsoft can provide for you. And, I will tell you, it took me 10 interviews to get my first job at Microsoft. They don't do that anymore. There's three or four, but many people I know who finally end up inside Microsoft have gone for multiple jobs, right? And it's taken a concerted effort, right? Don't be discouraged if you're trying to get inside the company and you don't get that first job that you apply to. Keep applying, right? Build your network, build your brand, invest in your niche. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and continue to network with people, and the right opportunity will come at the right time, because there are jobs in Microsoft that can be quite stressful. And so you want to make sure that you're getting, the right gig. But managing your brand inside this company is very much like doing it out in the world. And pretty soon it starts to blur, right? The things that I work on now, whether it's, event production, video production, Copilot, AI, business solutions, whatever it is I happen to be doing, people inside and outside of Microsoft know it. And that's not by chance, right? Taking that ownership and knowing that you can craft the life that you want to have, has been probably one of the most important things I ever understood. And I don't feel this confident every day. Don't be fooled. Today's a good day. I've had caffeine. I've had some sleep. I'm going downstairs to see my team, which is amazing. But I don't feel like this every day. But what I know overall is that, I've been able to be of service and build something that I'm really proud of, helping other people and making connections. and that if everybody has to have a job, we all have to support ourselves, and at least I have one that I enjoy more than 80% of the time. I don't enjoy it when I'm doing expense reports. I hate expense reports. I'm waiting for the agent that does my expense reports for me. But beyond that, it is an exciting time. And I'm also very grateful that I've been able to create the financial security that I have been able to do, for myself and for my family, because that was really important. Creating jobs is another one of those things that I'm very passionate about. That comes from my background. My mom had a lot of mental health and career issues when I was coming up, a lot of financial insecurity in my background. And so I know the power of a steady income and what it can mean to a family and for kids growing up. And so I want to do my part to help other women have that sort of independence and security for themselves. So, it's a privilege to get to come and speak with all of you today. And I'm back in the meeting so I can see if there's any questions. Happy to answer any questions that are out there, or provide any more insights about working at Microsoft.
I just have to chime in. That was awesome.
Thank you.
We have
And I too will share my
similarities.
slides.
Yes.
Yes, I will share my slides so you will have them.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Anybody want to come off mute? I know we're running short on time. We got about a minute left, but we can hang out. I can hang out for a little bit longer, but I'm sure Caruana's got to probably run, and I think Sue's super busy too. So if you want to come off mute, you can and chit chat for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Suman. I have a question like, how do one find their spot if they're very new in this job market as of today, with things changing day in and day out, and you continue to do something which because you have to earn your bread and butter on a daily basis at your work, but how to upskill and try to keep up with the market trends and still be ahead in your game.
So I'm going to take that one just for a second because it's a crushing thing I'm dealing with on a daily basis. Here's the thing. I don't have to, if I was still outside consulting or even now inside Microsoft, I don't have to keep up on everything. I have to keep up on the part of the technology that is specifically relevant to the niche that I've established for myself. So I've made an investment in understanding video production with AI, content generation with AI, and agentic capabilities like Copilot Studio. I'm building on the knowledge base I already have that's reasonably deep across Microsoft 365 administration as an IT pro in Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive and what have you. So I already have that baseline of knowledge, which I'm lucky for. And now I picked these areas. There's other things in sustainability and healthcare and supply chain that are happening in AI. I'm not actually paying attention to that because that's not really my niche, right? My niche is on the other side of the house, and that's what I've chosen. And also, I'm not as well educated necessarily in what they're doing at Google. Obviously, I know OpenAI, but there's a ton of AI startups that are doing amazing things that I don't know about until I go to MIT. I go to MIT twice a year and at an event there, and then I get educated. But normally, day to day, I'm focused because it's not possible to understand it all. Just know that it is absolutely not possible right now to understand all the innovation that is happening. So pick an area, go deeper in that area is my advice, and manage your time. And I'm pretty regimented about the fact that I study 2 to 4 hours a week on these sorts of things. And a lot of it, frankly, right now has to be at Microsoft innovation because that's my job and what I have to teach. And I need to know it before y'all do. And I need to be able to talk about it. So, I don't always get to look at the external stuff. But Microsoft and Adobe in my niche are the two main players, plus some other startups. So that's my approach. Not saying it's right. It's just how I'm managing, not feeling totally overwhelmed every single minute of the day.
Thank you
I
so
could,
much. This is very insightful. I was looking at Suzanne's blog, and I took a lot of inspiration for doing internet projects. So I should thank you, Suzanne, now that I've got an opportunity.
so it's interesting. I hate blogging. I blogged for Computer World, which gave me press credentials, but I gave it up during the pandemic because it wasn't bringing me joy. So honestly, I will write short posts on LinkedIn now because it's torturing me. Because again, I think with a book mindset, I am like writing and rewriting, and it was really driving me nuts. So that isn't my outlet anymore. I'd rather talk to a million people at conferences than write a blog. I'll change that, I think, when I retire. But again, I made this decision largely in 2020. I'm only going to do things that bring me joy. But I agree with you, Caruana. You cannot keep track of everything. What I've learned is keep track of what matters in the work that you do and ask other people to educate you where you don't know. I have my go-to people for different topics. And it always brings me joy when they don't know the answer and we have to research it together. So, because it just means they, my AI go-to guru Treb doesn't know everything. And we discovered something together that was really important for me, and he learned something too. That actually reminded me that there are even these people that know everything don't know everything. So it takes a lot of the um, sort of the pressure off of you when you realize you just can't. So
No, you have to surrender. Yeah, you have to surrender to that. And just, because there's plenty of things in the world today that you can get stressed out about. Keeping up with technology doesn't need to be one of them, right? I guarantee you there's something more important in your family or your life or whatever that would matter more. So don't let other people psych you into pretending that they know everything, because they don't. I guarantee you they don't. So I'd love to stay with you all for the rest of the afternoon. I do have to go down to my team and to the offsite that everybody's doing. Showing up, an important part of being at Microsoft. A joy to present with you, Sue. Thank you, Rachel, for asking me. Happy to come back and teach more stuff. Whatever you need, you got us.
Thank you. Thank you both for agreeing. And I just thought that this was just such a perfect lineup to have the two of you together. Like you get to see like really how you can build your career within Microsoft, within a large company, and on your own as well. So, which I'm kind of doing both right now.
I will say not every company supports sort of what you have been able to do, Caruana. And just to give you a little credit, you've been able to do it because you're you. Not everyone could do what you have done. I have often said to people who have at Microsoft, you need to look at what Caruana's doing, because she has figured out how to be who she needs to be where she wants to be. And so I think, yes, you've been able to find this niche, but also let's not discount the fact that you brought all that. You brought you to the table. So
thank you so much, Sue. And the one thing I'll say before I leave that is probably the unsung hero of my career at Microsoft is my love of data, reporting, and metrics. That is the currency at Microsoft that will get you in many doors when you master that data reporting and metrics of your impact. And so maybe I come back, Rachel, and do a session just on that, because there is a way to storytell with data that will be recognized by most C-suite leaders in the world. And I have absolutely mastered that. And it has played a huge part in my career. And I'm now remembering that I don't have that in those slides. So I may add a slide on that before I send it over to you, Rachel. Okay?
Do you have to use the word telemetry?
Yes. Telemetry. I do use the word telemetry quite a bit. Yes.
It's like, if you guys could just use another word.
I know. I'm sorry, but it is telemetry.
There is a lingo at Microsoft. Again, that's the other thing. You learn the vocabulary. You learn the vocabulary and speak in the language that it resonates with your executive. That's really, really important.
I have a completely different vocabulary when I go and work with the Air Force or I spoke at the Department of, I'm doing this project for the Defense Industrial Base, and they're all like retired generals or people with military backgrounds who run a port or whatever, and the way that they surge for mission completeness and what have you. So even what I just said, they surge for the mission. That is their language. And because I have that background, I can speak in their language, and it immediately identifies me as somebody who's not a dork from commercial coming to talk to government folks, right? Like nobody wants that. And I say yes, sir, a lot there. And I mean it out of honor and deference, not because it's some sexist thing either, you know? So there's definitely a culture in the language that you use in places, and Microsoft certainly has one. Decoding the culture. I see my next blog post. All right. I really do have to go now.
Okay.
I appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you.
right,
I'll see
thank
you all very
you.
soon. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you.